The core four is no more. This is Auston Matthews' team, but can he get back to his old self? Not sure 69 goals is ever going to happen again, but we're talking about a 36-goal drop-off over the past 2 seasons, just 33 goals last year. He was frustrated, he wasn't fully healthy, and now Fanduel has his over-under set at 45.5 for Matthews' goals in his first season without Mitch Marner, which is one of many stories we'll be covering here for NHL Futures Day. I'm Tekeyah Singh here with Frankie Corrado and Meghan Chayka, who will be making some projections for the NHL season.
We got the answers. Whatever you need, we got it.
We'll be talking
How much could change from year to year in the NHL anyways? Come on.
Well, last time Auston Matthews wasn't the favorite for the Rocket Richard Trophy heading into the season, you have to go back 6 years. But today, it's not Matthews. It's Leon Draisaitl as the favorite at plus 310. Draisaitl won it last year with 52 goals. Matthews did miss 15 games, and you have to think the odds makers are taking injury history into account. And Meghan, when you're looking at the analytics around Matthews' last 2 seasons, can you help us understand where the drop-off from 69 to 33 goals went?
Well, the drop-off is in this expected goals. In his high season, he had 50 expected goals. Last season, 28 expected goals. And that's because he had 1 less scoring chance per game. So less quality opportunity. And also Matthews was getting into the inner slot in the middle of the ice a lot less. He had 6 puck touches in that middle of the ice in the inner slot and only 4 last season. So a big problem getting in and around, creating those quality shots. But I think this season might be different. I'm projecting him 42 goals, 5th in the NHL. So he's still top 5. I would take the under based on my numbers. But Matthews has a season where he's chasing Matt Sundin's, only 20 goals away from having that franchise goal-scoring record. I think that's going to light a fire under him.
And you know what? I probably have Auston Matthews a little bit higher. I'm going to say 48 goals on the year for Matthews, just under 50. And I think the fact that now he has to be a little bit of a self-starter without Mitch Marner. Meghan, you talked about, having to get to those areas. A lot of the times he was getting to the areas and the puck would get delivered by Marner, especially when they were having success. He's going to have to bring it there a little bit. He's not going to have that reassurance that it's getting there for him. But with that being said, the fact that he's got to be the self-starter, I think he gets there. So 48 goals for Auston Matthews, a little bit of a transition period without Mitch Marner, but still should be considered a successful season goal-scoring-wise.
And I'll give you one more stat, Frankie. There's only one player in the last 4 years to score over 200 goals in that time chunk, and who is that? Auston Matthews.
There you have it. All right, Frankie, we're going to start with you. Who's your best bet for the Rocket?
Leon Draisaitl. Okay. And look, there's a lot of things going his way. First of all, he won it last year, but you look back at the last 4 years for Draisaitl, 52, 41, 52, and 55. And guess what's happening for the Edmonton Oilers this year? He is starting on a line with Connor McDavid. And with Trent Frederic around, he's a guy who has a very similar effect to Zach Hyman. Big body, going to the front of the net, causing that chaos, that disruption. The fact that we know Chris Knoblauch already is saying, I'm going with the nuclear option. It's not just something I'm going to do in-game because I feel like I need to get a win. Kind of signifies to me that Leon Draisaitl is going to have a lot of quality chances to score goals this year.
Well, who do you cover? McDavid or Draisaitl? I think you go for McDavid, but here you have a power forward German. I have him first in projected goals for 47 in this season, and he did play 689 minutes with McDavid last year. So almost 47% of the time he was on the ice with McDavid, and that's when they were splitting him up. Only tight games they played last year. Now they're rolling back and going, hey, let's just attack. So I see Leon just taking it and running with it.
All right, so you both like Leon Draisaitl for the Rocket Richard. Now let's talk anytime goal scorers. Any under-the-radar names that you guys might have?
Okay, I got a sneaky little one, and that's Marco Kasper of the Detroit Red Wings. I like this player, and he is in a great spot this season. He is scheduled to be playing on a line with Patrick Kane, Alex DeBrincat. They've been the best line at Red Wings camp so far. And if you go back to last year when Todd McClellan took over, he had 30 points in 48 games. He had 19 goals last year. He just feels like a player that's primed to take another step this season with a little more comfort where he's at the lineup.
And I think that team will just be better and rolling too in Detroit. I'll throw out one name, Bo Horvat. I don't think that would be a surprise. I have him projected 35 goals. He was actually first in expected goals, quality shots last season, and he had his second lowest shooting percentage ever in his career. The worst was in 2015. So 11.6 shooting percentage, a bit unlucky. I see that will rise. I think he'll score a lot more.
All right, from the goal scorers to the goaltenders, let's turn our attention to the crease now. Here are your top 5 choices to win the Vezina Trophy this season. No surprise to see Connor Hellebuyck as a significant favorite on Fanduel. He won it last year for the 3rd time. Just a dominant season, won the Hart Trophy as well. But where does that smart money lie? Well, we asked one of our favorite goalies, Marty Biron, for the inside edge.
I would be staying away from the top contenders because the Vezina Trophy could easily go to somebody else. When I look at Linus Ullmark at plus 5,000 to win the Vezina Trophy, he's already done it with the Boston Bruins. He got the team in the playoffs last year with the Ottawa Senators, and I think he'll play even more games this year. So yes, I think that not only could Linus Ullmark be a Vezina Trophy winner, he could be the MVP for the Ottawa Senators next year if the Ottawa Senators make their way back into the playoffs. So I think Linus Ullmark at plus 5,000 has got great value there. And I look at Anthony Stolarz at plus 2,700 with the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think Stolarz is going to play 55 games this year with the Leafs. He was one of the best goaltender in the National Hockey League last year, right behind Connor Hellebuyck. When you look at the goal save above expectation metrics, he was one of the best in the league 2 years ago with Florida as well, albeit as a backup. I think that plus 2,700 for Stolarz, plus 5,000 for Ullmark, those are great values.
Okay, some pretty big expectations there from Marty for the 2 starting goalies in Ontario. Now, Megan, what does that goals saved above expected stat mean, and why is that so impressive for Stolarz?
Well, let's keep it simple. 0 is an average goaltender. If it's positive, it means they've saved more goals than they should have. If it's negative, that's not good for your team. And Stolarz was plus 12 last season, saving 12 extra goals. Even more impressive, he was .937 in saves versus traffic. And you know, teams like getting a lot of traffic, but the puck's not getting through. So amazing goaltending last season, hopefully carrying it into this season.
And the thing that Linus Ullmark has going for him is the Ottawa Senators really established themselves as a stout defensive team last year, and a lot of that credit should go to head coach Travis Green. It's basically the same group that has been there for a long time now, but he got them to play better defensively, and Ullmark himself has been, streaky, where there's moments where he's simply unbeatable, at times struggles with injuries, maybe some inconsistencies, but as that team gets better defensively and they add more offense this year, if Linus Ullmark can find that consistency, he's won a Vezina before, there's always a chance he could win another Vezina.
Listen, there's no shortage of good goaltending in the Atlantic Division. This is the projected finish according to the odds makers using their over-under point totals. Florida was the favorite before the Barkov knee injury. Now it's the Tampa Bay Lightning who are projected to finish first. Fanduel has the Leafs 7 points clear of the Sens. They finished 11 points ahead of their provincial rivals last year. With more on the futures markets in the Battle of Ontario, here's Aaron Korolnek with Carlo Colaiacovo.
Happy Fanduel Futures Day. It is the sports betting equivalent, Carlo, of Hanukkah and Christmas combined.
Love it.
It doesn't get any better than this. The NHL's regular season right around the corner. This is the 5-minute edition of Power Plays powered by Fanduel, and we're breaking down the Battle of Ontario. Why don't we start with 2 of the premier forwards in the Atlantic Division, Tim Stützle for Ottawa and William Nylander for Toronto. Who's the better bet to record 90-plus points this season?
You know what? I like this comparison because they're 2 players that have had 90-point seasons in their career as early as 2 years ago. Now, they didn't reach that point total in last year, but William Nylander did score 45 goals. And guess what? William Nylander is has to have an elevated role this year without Mitch Marner in the lineup. So both of them provide tremendous value. Stützle at plus 260, Nylander at plus 175. And normally I would take the higher value, but this one I'm sticking with Nylander because I actually think he's going to score 50 goals this year, which means he's going to probably get 100 points in doing so. And so, with Stützle, he's got the same line mates in probably Brady and Claude Giroux. Could William Nylander play up with Auston Matthews at some point this season? If that does, that helps increase his point total.
Yeah, Toronto's going to need to get that power play cooking without Marner, and Ottawa needs to start scoring at 5-on-5 in a lot more proficient ways than they did last season. That was a major hindrance for them. Let's talk about Nylander's line mate in John Tavares and Stützle's line mate in Brady Tkachuk. Who's the better bet to record 80-plus points this year between those two?
Well, again, as you can see the comparable here, it's pretty evenly matched. Tavares, he had an amazing season at 34 years old. He's going to be 35. Can we expect that same level of production to eclipse 74 points that he had last season? With Brady Tkachuk, he had a down year, 55 points. And it was the first season, the last 4, where he didn't get 30 goals, 29 to say the least. So if I had to make a projection here, who's going to record 80, I'm going to go Brady Tkachuk here because I think there's room for improvement here. And for Brady Tkachuk to do that, he's got to stay out of the box.
Yeah.
He can't be the team policeman. He had 123 PIMs last year. If he limits that by half, that means he's on the ice more.
Yeah, we have to respect John Tavares, everything he's been able to accomplish. But Father Time is undefeated. Yeah. Brady Tkachuk, younger, perhaps a higher upside. Dylan Cousins has a very high upside as well. Where would you set his odds for him to score 30-plus for the Sens this year?
Well, 30 goals, that's 30%. I would say plus 300, right? And if you look at Dylan Cousins' career, he's entering his 5th season. He's only had a 30-goal season, and then every other season's been under 20. So I know he's in a new spot in Ottawa where he's the defined second-line center iceman, but coming up from behind him is Shane Pinto, who wants more playing time. I just think that to ask him to score 30 goals again, or to expect him to score 30 goals again, is a tough ask, and I hope he does it for Ottawa, because like you said, they need more 5-on-5 production, but I think there's a higher value that he's going to do it than not.
Cousins and Drake Batherson were a really nice duo in the latter half of the season for the Sens. They'll need to continue things starting 2025 and 2026. Let's talk about Jake Sanderson, a guy who I know you're very high on. Fanduel has him ranked 15th in Norris Trophy odds. Yeah. Do you think he's underrated by the odds makers?
Yeah, I'm going to use the word very underrated because I don't understand this one. If you look at TSN's top 50 list that just came out, he was ranked 43rd on that list. And in defensemen, he's ranked 10th of the defensemen on that top 50 list. So just that alone means he should be higher than 15th. But if you look at his season last year, 57 points, that's top 10 in scoring. This is a guy that plays every situation, top power play unit, top PK, on the ice with all the top players. I think there's significant room for improvement there, entering his 4th season in the National Hockey League. And guess what else is on his agenda? Making that Olympic team.
Oh, it seems like he's a lock to make the Olympic team.
I mean, he should absolutely be in the top 10, higher than 50.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. Fanduel, the disrespect to Jake Sanderson cannot be accepted. All right, how about this one? And this is going to be very divisive here on FanDuel Futures Day. The Ottawa Senators to finish ahead of the Toronto Maple Leafs, a 39% implied probability on FanDuel, plus 155. What do you think?
Hey, I'd actually put the percentage much lower and the odds much higher for the Ottawa Senators to overtake the Maple Leafs, because how do they make up the math? The Maple Leafs won the division with 108 points. They finished 11 points higher than the Ottawa Senators did last year. How does Ottawa make up 11 points on the Maple Leafs to overtake them? Now, people will say, the Toronto Maple Leafs, there's no Mitch Marner. And they're right. There is no Mitch Marner. You got to replace 100 points. But they still got the league's best goalie tandem. They still got a really good coach. They still have a really good player in Auston Matthews and William Nylander. I still think the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to be a strong contender in that Atlantic division. So for the Ottawa Senators to overtake them, that means they're going to need another big year from Linus Ullmark, who had 25 of their 45 wins. That's going to be a huge factor to them, and we'll see if they can do it.
Can't wait to see the Battle of Ontario once again in 2025. And don't forget to head to the FanDuel app to make predictions of your own.
Will Connor McDavid win his 3rd Hart Trophy this season? He is the betting favorite on FanDuel, to no one's surprise, but his lack of goal scoring last year was kind of surprising. Just 26 goals, half of what his teammate Leon Draisaitl scored. Connor Hellebuyck won the Hart last year, the first goalie in 10 years to do so. He is tied for 6th choice heading into the season at 19-1. Back with Frank and Meghan here on FanDuel Futures Day. Now, Frankie, what does Connor McDavid have to do to win the Hart Trophy this year? Because he finished 10th in voting last season. He hasn't finished that far back since his rookie season.
He's got to nearly sweep the board, and what I mean by that is he's got to win the Art Ross, he's got to be in the mix for the Rocket Richard, and he's got to push up to the level and the bar that he set. Because Connor McDavid, there's no expectations that were put on him that he didn't live up to. He's lived up to all the expectations. He's raised the bar. The other thing that comes to mind is how much of your team's offense do you produce? And if you look at last year, Connor McDavid was in on 38% of the Edmonton Oilers offense. Well, that was less than Leon Draisaitl. It was less than someone like Nikita Kucherov. That number's got to be way high. The team narrative is always going to be there. He's got to be better than Draisaitl, and he's got to push up to the level that Connor McDavid has established.
Do you want him to be higher than that, though? I'm not sure if that's good for team cohesion.
No, you're probably right.
But I'll give you one stat. So scoring chances created, him shooting and passing. What led to a scoring chance? He was 6th last season per game. Number 1 in the NHL. So if you're looking for the best player in the game, that's probably a good metric to go by. Is he worth the price of admission? Yes. Will he necessarily win this award? No. But, you know, as a team, I think the Edmonton Oilers are one to watch.
They want to win a Stanley Cup.
They want to win.
That's all that matters over
Correct.
there.
Well, can they win the West for a third year in a row? The odds makers certainly think so. Edmonton is the favorite to win the Western Conference and advance to the Cup final. Their over-under point total for the season is set at 106.5. The Winnipeg Jets, who finished first in the West in the regular season last year, round the top 5. Fanduel giving them 9-1 odds to reach the Stanley Cup final. Now, Megan, I got to ask you about the Jets because everything seemed to go right during the regular season, but then they lost in the second round. They lost Ehlers, brought in Taves. Do you think they'll be as good as last year?
No, and that's a scary thing. When everything goes right, you know the wheels can fall off in different ways. Ehlers is a huge gap to lose. He was about 18 expected goals, but he was even more crafty, shifty. He could create offense from any area. Now, Cole Perfetti, will he fill that gap? 16 expected goals, so not far off, but not quite the player that Ehlers is. So I think it'll have to be by committee. Everyone will have to pitch in to get that scoring up. And the scarier part is Hellebuck really helped that team. And he also was the second busiest goaltender in the NHL with a ton of shots. So if you think Hellebuck's going to absolutely stand on his head and everyone's going to contribute, then yes, the Winnipeg Jets will be as good.
Listen, I think it's fair to expect the Winnipeg Jets to take a step back from last season. They started the year 15-1-0. Like, for them to do that 2 years in a row and build up that much goodwill is just simply not going to happen. Now, losing Nick Ehlers, what they have lost is someone who can create offense, basically like in a one-on-one situation, where at times in years past for the Winnipeg Jets, offense has been harder to come by. That's a guy who can do something in a flash. They're not going to have that. But they still have a deep team. They have a good team identity. They have a solid back end. They'll be a good team. They just won't be a great team the way they were last year. And that still puts them in the playoff mix and gives them an opportunity to exercise some of those playoff demons that you talked about.
But how difficult is their division?
So
I right now
difficult.
have 5 that projected that could make in their division.
Yeah,
so
and there's going to be a team that likely misses from the Central that probably deserves to make it.
Absolutely.
Well, a big year coming up for Mark Scheifele, coming off a career-high 87 points. And he's got some extra motivation because he was snubbed from Team Canada at the Four Nations. Will he make Team Canada this time round for the Olympics? The odds makers certainly think so at -450. FanDuel's giving him an 81% chance to make the Olympic team. Carlo and Aaron are going to have more on Team Canada after the break.
Back with Carlo here on another edition of Power Plays. Coco, we're talking about Team Canada 2026 in Milan, and FanDuel has all types of markets for that as well. Why don't we start with Mark Scheifele, who was left off the Four Nations roster. Do you think he makes it this time around?
Yeah, I think he's a lock this time. I think the odds should be somewhere around -450 because he was one of the biggest omissions of that Canada team at the Four Nations. And you just look at the impact that he can have in the game. Look at what he's done with the Winnipeg Jets. Help him win the President's Trophy. Was a star for them in the playoffs. I just think he's a guy that has to be on this team.
Nick Suzuki's another guy who will be hotly debated heading into this selection. What do you think?
I think he's a bubble guy, and if I had to put a percentage, I'm going 50-50 because if you look at Nick Suzuki, look at that Four Nations roster. Who's coming off, especially when you had guys like Scheifele, Hyman, Celebrini, and Bedard in the mix too. I just think it's going to be hard pressed for him to make it. He has to have a good year like he did last year.
Another really interesting debate is the polarizing force that is Evan Bouchard, who offensively is as good as anybody, defensively might have some warts. Do you think he makes Team Canada?
I don't, and here's the reason why. He didn't make Four Nations because he got off to a bad start. Why? Because it was his offense. And if you're looking at a guy that can impact the game as offensively as he can, It's the Bush bomb, right? So who's he replacing offensively? Who's going to overtake? He's not going to overtake Makar, Morrissey, or Theodore, so it's going to be hard-pressed for him to make it.
Yeah, it does seem unlikely for Evan Bouchard. As good as this he's been in the postseason for Edmonton, Team Canada, maybe not this time around. Tom Wilson versus Zach Hyman. Who is more likely to make Team Canada?
I would love to see both of them make it.
Maybe they do.
Maybe they do. But I think Zach Hyman, just because of the relationship with McDavid, remember, at the Four Nations, it was a revolving door to see who could play with McDavid. And with Tom Wilson being at the Olympics, are you going to be allowed to be as physical as Canada wants to be or we saw in the Four Nations? So I think Hyman gets the edge.
Perhaps the most controversial decision, Macklin Celebrini, Connor Bedard, the young guns. What do you think about their chances?
I'm interested to see how both of them play this season, especially for Bedard to come back to what we know him to be. But I'm going with Macklin Celebrini on this one because I did the World Hockey Championships. He created a nice rapport with Sidney Crosby, and I think his game, his all-around game, is better suited for it.
If you want to make predictions of your own, head to the Fanduel Sportsbook app. Back to you, Tekeyah.
The Alexander Barkov injury had a huge impact on Stanley Cup odds. Florida was the favorite for the entire offseason, but now they're outside of the top 5. Remember, Matthew Tkachuk is out until at least December as well. The Edmonton Oilers are the new Cup favorite at 8-1, but it's pretty close, with FanDuel giving Dallas, Carolina, Colorado, and Vegas very similar odds. We're back with Frankie and Meghan here on FanDuel Futures Day. Now, we've come to the end of the show, so it's time for Stanley Cup predictions. And Meghan, I know that your team at Stathleys projects these kinds of things, so what's the most likely matchup?
The most likely for us, around 9%, is we're not getting rid of Florida, but we're going to the Tampa Bay Lightning versus the Colorado Avalanche. I know, is it fair? Sunshine, right? It does it to you as a hockey player. Both were top 5 in expected goals last year, so driving a lot of shot quality. And it actually likes Colorado to hoist the cup at 14% chance. And I think it has partly because the most slot shots went to Colorado last season, and Nathan MacKinnon had 34 expected goals, and Cale Makar. So you have just a all-star studded forward and defense coming at you.
It is hard to argue the explosiveness of the Colorado Avalanche offensively. I'm going to say the Stanley Cup comes out of the Western Conference, the Central Division, but it's going to the Dallas Stars, another no state tax team. And I'm going to call it the It's About Time Stanley Cup final, because I'm going to say they go up against the Carolina Hurricanes, two teams that are looking to get there. Carolina looking to get over the hump. Ultimately, I think Dallas does it. A full year of Mikko Rantanen, a new head coach, a lot of depth down the middle. Yes, I would like to see them beef up the right side of their decor. Good goaltending already, has the bones to be a Stanley Cup winning team.
This was the NHL Future Show for Frankie Corrado and Meghan Chayka. I'm Tekeyah Singh. Thank you for joining us. You can check out all the future markets on the FanDuel app as we get ready to drop the puck on the NHL season.